Kyrie Irving, first playoff game since the 2017 finals. Wasn't always a thing of beauty, but they get the win. He puts 20 on the board, and the Celtics take a 1-0 lead in the series with an 84-74 win. Welcome into our post-game coverage here on NBA TV. Good to have you with us. That's Grant Hill, Bredan Haywood. I'm Matt Weiner. This was not pretty. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Not
ugly basketball.
Not a thing of beauty.
Ugly basketball.
Combined shooting under 35% for the two teams. The Pacers hit just 2 buckets in the third quarter when they were 2 of 19. And ultimately, that was the difference in this game after a slow start by Boston.
Yeah, that was 2 buckets more than Brendan and I did tonight. But no, it really was. I mean, a game that was ugly. And I thought Indiana first half actually, did a decent job. They were in the game and had a lead for a good portion of that. But that third quarter defensively was probably a little bit of great defense and probably a little bit of bad offense as well. But tip your hat to the Celtics for tightening the screws there and coming out defensively and really getting the win on that side of the ball here tonight.
Yeah, sometimes you got to win ugly, and that's exactly what the Celtics did. They didn't come out and they didn't look very good in the first quarter. Indiana looked like they had more juice, they had more pop, looked like they were a little bit more excited to be in the playoffs. Yeah. And it showed in the halftime score. And then we got to the second half. Boston realized they were in a dogfight. They raised their energy level on the defensive end. Kyrie picked it up a little bit in the third quarter, and they did just enough offensively to win this game. Indiana, you have to be encouraged by your defense, but offensively, Nate McMillan's going to have to figure out, what do I do to find a way to get these guys to score? Who do I put in a better position? Because tonight nobody had it. Only one starter in double figures for the Indiana Pacers.
That was Bojan Bogdanovic, who's already become public enemy number 1 in Boston, apparently. He was just 4 of 11 for 12 points. He has been kind of the closest thing they have to a go-to guy offensively since the Oladipo injury, and there was no going to him in this game.
And that's going to be tough sledding. You look at the rest of the top-tier teams in the Eastern Conference, and when it's time to get a bucket, Milwaukee's going to go to Giannis. Toronto's going to go to Kawhi. Boston's going to go to Kyrie. And we're talking about Bogdanovic. Like, that's not – it's no disrespect to him, but He's just not in that class. And when you catch yourself in the playoffs where the game does slow down, as we saw today, and it gets tough, and it's hand-to-hand combat in there, you're trying to figure out, how do I get a point? How do I get a bucket? You need somebody that can get his own shot. You need old-school Grant Hill. That's what they needed, and they didn't have it tonight.
They didn't have it. I mean, Bogdanovic, let's give him credit, since the injuries, played very well, averaged 20 points, 50% shootings, become their go-to guy. But he's not a guy that can go get his own shot to that point. And that's a problem, particularly in the playoffs, and particularly against a defensive-minded team that has great length and great perimeter defenders like Boston. And so you're right. Defensively, you're Nate McMillan. 84 points you give up to Boston at home. You can live with that. Yeah. But they're going to have to somehow, some way manufacture some points, some baskets on the offensive end. And I just don't know where and how that's going to happen.
This was the game to me for the Pacers. Boston came out a little bit flat. Pacers had a good game plan. This was the game to steal.
Double-digit lead in the first half.
When you're on the road, you're looking for a game to steal. This was the game. And offensively, the Pacers just didn't have anything in the tank tonight, and they let it slip away. But this was a very winnable game for the Indiana Pacers. I thought they let a great opportunity slip away.
For Boston, it's been such a roller coaster season, and we've been, scrutinizing from the get-go how the chemistry works, what doesn't work, what rotation is going to play during the postseason. Because of the Marcus Smart injury, Jaylen Brown gets the start. Wasn't a big factor offensively. He only had 2 points in this game. What did you make of the playoff version of the Celtics, the one that back last summer a lot of folks thought would come out of the Eastern Conference and reach the finals?
Well, this playoff version was very similar to the regular season version. They got the win, but it wasn't a spectacular win. It wasn't sort of, okay, we're in the postseason now. We're going to turn that page from the regular season to the playoffs, right? And we're going to come out and send a message. You were thinking or hoping that this team, particularly if you're a Celtics fan, that they would, send a statement here that, okay, this is the playoff version. This is like last year. We're ready to go. And to me, it's more kind of the same. Just sort of inconsistent, unsure. You get the win, but not something you feel great about against a team that is undermanned right now and doesn't have all their weapons. So, maybe we'll get to that version. Maybe we'll get to that point. But the most important thing was, obviously getting that win. And we saw yesterday, how some of these teams with home court advantage losing that first game. So, they got the win. Room for improvement for the Celtics. They're going to have to get better and tighten some things up. Obviously, score more points efficiently, be a little bit better and more efficient on the offensive end. But defensively, not a bad job being able to lock a team down like that, and just have to continue to have that be their identity, particularly here in the playoffs.
I thought there were some good signs from them defensively that maybe they coalesced a little bit during this game. They win despite their worst shooting game of the entire season. Boston did. And I'm curious, against Indiana, which gave up the fewest points per game in the NBA this season, is it easier or more difficult to sort of lock into a playoff type intensity if you're Boston playing a team that grinds the way they do? I mean, nothing is going to come easy, obviously.
Yeah, it's always going to, when the playoffs come, it's easy to just lock into a playoff mindset anyway, just because things are different as far as your game, your approach, your practices, scouting reports, everything is really, really team specific, and you get used to figuring out, hey, this is what we're going to take away on a game-to-game basis, and we're going to do pretty much the same thing with some slight wrinkles for 4 games to make this team play to their weakness. Right now, the Pacers' weakness is their scoring. And so we were talking about what version of the Boston Celtics were we going to get. We've gotten the Celtics, like you said, that we've gotten all year long. The most consistent thing about the Boston Celtics is they've been inconsistent.
Yeah.
And playoff activation mode just didn't really kick in. It kind of kicked in the same way LeBron's playoff activation mode kicked in earlier this season. It just never really turned over, like an old Chevy in the wintertime. It just never really turned over. So, those old Chevys, they just, in the cold, they just don't turn over sometimes. So it was one of those situations like that where the Celtics really didn't just say, hey, man, we're going to come out here and just shock the world and show them what our talent level is all about. That's not what happened. They came out a little bit sluggish.
Yeah.
If they had been playing against a team that could score some points, they probably would have lost this game. They need to be thankful. They need to say, okay, this is what we did good defensively, but offensively and from a cohesion standpoint, they need to figure out how they can score more points. And for them, it's about not just this series, because they have bigger aspirations than this series. They have to figure out how can we be better moving forward, getting towards our goal of possibly playing for an NBA championship.
So what I take from that is, A, we learned nothing about the Celtics, and B, you're unlikely to get a Chevy endorsement anytime soon.
Yeah, Chevy's probably not going to call me. No, but not the news. I mean, you know the old Chevys.
But you don't
like
really impress me as a Chevy kind of guy.
Yeah, I could probably pull it off, but it's like what those old Chevys in the wintertime. You got to turn that key back in the day, man. That's old school. That's old school.
Well, what did you think of Kyrie Irving? His first playoff game since Game 5 of the 2017 NBA Finals.
I think that he was trying to figure it out. And he's been trying to do it all year long. He's trying to figure out, how do I mesh my talents and old school get a bucket whenever I want to Kyrie with this team, and figuring out when do I get the most out of my teammates, when do I let other guys score, when do I pass the ball. And in the first half, as a guy that played with Kyrie, he was a little bit passive on purpose. He came out there letting other guys do their thing. In the second half, when guys were struggling, you saw in the third quarter, he came out with a little bit more of a sense of urgency. So Kyrie's trying to put all this together. This is his first time with his own team in the playoffs, and he's trying to figure out that leadership role.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. I mean, what does Kyrie need to do for this team? And like you said, that's sort of been, maybe him in terms of problem solving all season. When he was in Cleveland, it was just, let me get the ball and score. Yeah. That was his role. That was what was asked of him. LeBron could sort of, facilitate, keep everybody happy, make sure everybody eats. But it's here, it's like he's just, and it's been that way all season. It's a bit disjointed. You used that word earlier, and just in terms of the pieces and then sort of the approach. And so we know what he's capable of. We know what he can do. He's trying to get guys involved, but we're accustomed to Kyrie sort of coming down every time, looking to score, and that's not what we're seeing from Kyrie. We saw that last year. I think he played more like that last year in the regular season before he got hurt, but so much has changed since then. And the good thing is that Indiana's an opponent where I think they can win this series pretty easily. Mm-hmm. They can get their rhythm, hopefully, get their timing, figure things out. Try to win as quickly as possible, and then be prepared for that next round. But Kyrie's going to have to be elite. Today he was good,
right?
But he needs to be elite Kyrie Irving for this team to have a chance to win it all.
MVP for the Celtics today may have been Marcus Morris, who had 20 off the bench and was plus 15 in just under 30 minutes worth of work.
Yeah, no, I mean, and Marcus Morris, look, he's been one of the few consistents all season. Even the start of the year where there was a lot of uncertainty in the lineups and he was coming off the bench, he was shooting the ball well, he was great in the low post, and, you know, he started at one point, he's off the bench again tonight, but a guy that just can, instant offense, fits in, can do a number of different things right there, and that's the kind of role you want to have, what kind of performance you want to have from your bench. Someone off the bench who can come in and get hot, and 20 points for him in 29 minutes is pretty efficient and pretty effective.
All right, we're waiting on the coaches. There we are. Nate McMillan has sat down. His team down 0-1 to Boston. Let's listen.
Nate, just what was the problem in the third quarter?
Well, first it was turnovers. Our first two possessions were turnovers. We didn't establish ourselves in that third quarter, and the turnovers led to poor execution and missed some shots. I thought we had some open looks in that third quarter and really lost our rhythm. I thought we kind of lost our way in that third quarter.
Reminder, please, ladies and gentlemen, state your name and affiliation before asking Coach a question. Thank you.
Coach, it's Bob Schramm from The Citizen. I looked up with like 4 minutes to go, the starters total had 31 points. That's kind of also speaks to the difficulties you had execution.
Yeah, I mean, they played most of that third quarter. As I mentioned, we started, we hold Boston. I don't know if we hold them, but they scored 84 points, and I don't know if Boston scored 84 points the entire season. So defensively, we did some good things. We did some good things offensively in that first half. We made shots. The third quarter, we start off, as I mentioned, with 2 turnovers, and then we had open looks that we did knock down, and I thought we lost a little confidence in that third quarter, and they got the momentum and really never let that go.
Jared Weiss from The Athletic. Bojan has been really on fire lately, and they were able to kind of corral him by trying to chase him over screens and then switch when he tried to cut in. What do you think were the elements of their game plan that really worked, and what do you think he can do next game?
Well, they got length out there. You add Brown to the lineup, and they're pretty long, other than Kyrie, and I thought they got physical with us. I thought they got up, the second half, which the game is going to, that sense of urgency is going to get higher going into the quarters, from the start of the first, second, third, and going into that fourth quarter. I thought we came out and played that third quarter like the first quarter, as if we thought it was going to we were going to have our way, and they turned up the intensity. We didn't respond to that. They got physical, started to body, get more aggressive defensively, and we didn't do a good job of executing.
John Corrales, MassLive.com. Offensive rebounds have been a strength for you guys against the Celtics, but in the second half, that kind of went away. Do you chalk that up to what you were just saying, the Celtics ramping up the physicality, or did you see your team kind of stop being aggressive on their own?
No, I don't think it was, stopping being aggressive. I thought we missed shots, and, we talked about getting back in transition. We started to turn the ball over a little bit more, and we just didn't establish ourselves the second half. And, it starts with the defensive end of the floor, offensively, executing, getting good shots, and when you're not knocking down shots, they're going to get out in transition, which they did. And once again, I think they scored 25 points in transition. So, and we got to make shots. We did in the first half. Second half, it was more turnovers and missed shots than we needed.
Gary?
Nate, Gary Washburn, Boston Globe. You guys went 2 for 19 in the third quarter. That doesn't happen very often. How do you react when guys just start hitting shots? You're doing what you need to do defensively. You're mucking up the game. You're keeping it close, but guys don't hit shots they usually hit.
Well, they have to you have to execute, and you have to take good shots, and you can't force and press. You have to work together out there. I thought probably midway through that third quarter, we started to take some quick shots, and because of their pressure, we started to try to force it and take some quick shots as opposed to continue to work together, make them defend you, get to your third and fourth option, and normally you're going to get a pretty good look there. We took some quick shots. I think a couple of those were open looks, but we didn't make them work defensively. And when you're not making those shots, normally they lead to fast break points. So kind of lost our patience there.
Final two questions. Bill Burt first, please. And Bill Doyle.
Bill Burt, Eagle Tribune, CNHI Sports Boston. So you're saying you maybe the 74 points or more on you guys than on the Celtics, who really been sort of critiqued most of the year defensively, and you've played them a couple times lately. It looked like it was probably one of their best defensive efforts of the season.
I'm saying it's both. I said they turned up their defense. So I think that's giving them credit. And I said we missed some shots. And so it's a little bit of both. We turned the ball over, so it was both.
Final question, please. Bill Doyle in front.
Bill Doyle from the Worcester Telegram. Nate, can you just talk about Marcus Morris and what he gave the Celtics tonight, especially in the first quarter when no one else seemed to be doing anything for the Celtics? He kept them close.
Well, he's a guy that, really establishes their defense. He, gets after the best player, and they feed off of that. And it just gives them depth with him being out there in that lineup, and not having him. Brown stepped in and did a good job. They have depth, and they're able to plug guys in, which Brad has done, since he's been here. When they've had injuries, guys have stepped up and played. But he establishes their defense, or has established their defense by his physicality, taking the best offensive player, 1, 2, or 3. Offensively, he can play anywhere in the post. On the perimeter, he knocks down threes, so a solid player.
Thank you, Coach. All right. Thank you, Bishop.
Head coach Nate McMillan on his Pacers' futility in Game 1. Here's how it played out this afternoon in Boston. Al Horford energized early on. Indy came out hot from three-point range. That may sound funny if you look at the final box score, but they were for a minute.
They'll hop for a quick second.
Wes
Grand
Matthews
opening,
for 3. And you heard Nate McMillan talking about Marcus Morris and the impact he had on this game. That tied it at 18. Tyreek Evans.
Ooh, nice Euro step right there. Only 3 for 11. They're going to need more from Tyreek in the next game because they're going to be looking for buckets somewhere. He's the type of guy that can get his own shot.
A big part of Indiana building a double-digit lead in the first half was Boston turnovers as well. They turned it over 10 times before halftime.
Boston too careless, and Indiana, as you said, Matt, taking great advantage with a nice, comfortable lead early.
Hey, to the third, the legend. Of course, big part of both these organizations.
I'm glad.
Boston starts the second half on a 15-1 run.
That dunk right there set the tone too. And then Kyrie got to cooking. You see him dancing right there. He is so good at getting his own shot.
Those were Jaylen Brown's only points, by the way, that dunk.
If you're going to only score 2 points, might as well be an impressive 2.
That lead, run rather stretches out to 22-3. Morris knocks down the 3 at 20 on the afternoon.
Hello. This should have been a 4-point play.
Yes, it should have been. Terry Rozier.
Yes, he got hit on the arm after the 3. That's why he's so hyped right there. Come on now, what are you looking at?
Put him up by 11. Thaddeus Young, no. Indiana had just some ugly possessions in the second half. Just 2 buckets in the third quarter. Fourth quarter wasn't much better. Gordon Hayward for the layup, and then it's Horford to Kyrie Irving. right over Domantas Sabonis. He goes for 25 boards, 7 assists. Boston is now 11-1 on their home floor in the postseason over the last 2 playoffs. 84-74 is the final. Game 2 will be on Wednesday. Here's Brad Stevens.
Questions for Coach Stevens?
Brad, Bill Doyle, Worcester Telegram. There are a lot of players that played well tonight, but you could talk about Marcus Morris and what he did, especially in the first quarter when his teammates were having trouble.
No, Marcus was great. You saw that coming in the last 2 days of practice. He was terrific on Thursday in practice when we went live. I think he probably benefited as much as anybody from being out for a couple of the last regular season games. I think 2 of the last 4, 2 of the last 3. So I thought he did a really good job, and we need him to. I mean, I thought he played big and strong and rebounded the ball for us on the defensive end. And then he's a hard guy to guard with bigs because he spreads the floor for you.
Paul Flannery, SB Nation.
Hi, Paul.
Hey, Brad. What keyed that third quarter for you guys, especially defensively?
Well, I'll go back and look at it, and I think there will always be they probably had some possessions they'd like to, some shots they'd like to have back. They missed some shots, but we were really connected. We were really playing hard. We were really flying around. That doesn't mean you'll always get stops, and there's probably some bounces that didn't go their way, but we gave up 2 or 3, maybe 4 rolls and dunk/layups there in the second quarter, and we wanted to be a lot better at protecting the rim and the paint first.
Mark Murphy, Boston Herald. Brad, did you guys start out a little tight, and was it just a matter of sort of getting through that initially?
I was asked that at halftime too. That's not fair to Indiana. I mean, those guys guarded their butts off, and that looked like a 1980s playoff game in a lot of ways with the score, but it's tough. Like, those guys are tough. They're physical. For us to say that we were just tight and we missed shots would not be fair to them. I thought that they were tremendous defensively, and they did some things a little differently than they had in the last 2 games. In a lot of ways, I just told Abby, this is not like game 1. This was almost like game 3 because we had played each other a couple of times in the recent weeks. So we have a lot to get better at to make sure that we get the looks we want and then knock them in. But we missed some open looks in the first half, but we also, there were times where we didn't own our space. And, and they were very physical with us.
Jared Weiss, The Athletic. Nate was just up there saying that you guys were very physical defensively. How important was it to establish that right out the gate, really set the tone for the series?
Both teams were, Jared. I mean, I think that if you this is not a series for the timid. I mean, we've known that going in. This is a heck of a team with a heck of a coach, and we're going to have to play. The minute you left your foot off the gas or don't play the right way, you're going to get beat.
Coach Sherrod Blakely, NBC Sports Boston. In the third quarter was when the tide seemed to flow in your direction, and Al Horford had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
Just speak to what he meant in that critical juncture tonight or today, and just his value as a whole for this team going forward.
Yeah, he was great on the glass. He was great protecting the paint. I thought he was just good generally defensively with good ball pressure on their bigs on some of their handoffs. And then offensively, he had a couple of key baskets there, the spin and one to tie it. After we had a couple of, even though we started the third quarter on a run, it was like it took a while to get the run going. We missed a couple of possessions, but he's our stabilizer in a lot of ways. We need to do probably a better job of giving him space and getting him into advantageous actions as a team and as a coaching staff. And so that's what we'll try to figure out.
Steve?
Steve Belpet, Boston Herald. Brad, getting back to the physical issue, you guys seem to be even more so in the third quarter coming out after halftime. Seemed to have a big effect. Was that kind of a point that had to be made at the break?
I mean, the biggest point we made at the break was protecting the paint. And, not as much physicality-wise, but more just from the standpoint of those rolls that I talked about, where they got down the middle of us, on us, and laid it in. And I mean, you can't give teams layups, and you got challenge shots as well as you can, and then rebounding and owning your space on offense has been our number 1 and 2 emphases for the last 4 days. So it's disappointing the way that they got up under us a little bit. We knew that they would come at us. You watch the film of the last few game ones they've played at Cleveland last two years, at Toronto the year before. Like, they get after you, and we knew that was coming. Still shocked us a little bit, but we did a great job on the glass for the most part. I don't even know what the numbers are, but it felt like we did.
Final question, Coach, from Chris Gasper.
Chris Gasper, Boston Globe. Brad, I know it's been a challenge at times this year to get the most out of this group. So how do you look at this game? It's a game where you shoot 36% from the field and have 17 turnovers, but it's a double-digit win.
Yeah, maybe the best combination for our team is it was hard. It wasn't pretty. Things went against us. Even a couple of bounces went against us in the first half where they picked it up and hit end of shot clock plays or putbacks. But you've got to stay together, and you've got to grind it out. And so there'll be games where we make a lot of shots, and it'll make us look better than we played. Today we played a little bit better than we looked, and we just have to be a little bit better owning our space.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.
Brad Stevens there. On the other side, we'll hear from Kyrie Irving, who just played his first postseason game in just about 22 months' time. In the Celtics up 1-0